Will College Game Day be coming to your city in 2023? That is what we are here to answer today. Welcome back to the Gridiron Expert, guys. We're so glad that you could join us as we are set to predict the site of College Game Day for every single week in this upcoming college football season. It's a tough task, one that probably won't be right in the end, but it's definitely fun to speculate and to talk about. So we're so glad that you could join us today. As always, please continue to like, comment, subscribe, share our videos, and of course, check out everything down in the description below because, guys, here at the Gridiron Expert, college football never dies. The season never ends, and every day gets us one step closer to college football, gets us one step closer to College Game Day. We want you to become a part of our GE Nation. We want you to take advantage of the nonstop college football content. So like, comment, subscribe, hit that notification button so you don't miss out on any of our future content going forward, including game-by-game predictions for every single team coming your way in just about a month. Do not want to miss out on that. So let's take a look. College Game Day. It's arguably the best way to kick off your Saturday mornings in the fall. It is always a great show. It's exciting. It's an honor to get to have College Game Day in your city if they come for your team. It's the biggest game of the week every single week. It's exciting. It's awesome. And it's a heck of a tradition as well. So we took the liberty to predict the site for every single week for College Game Day. We'll just dive into it with quick hitters on each. Starting in week 1, where we believe they will go to Charlotte, a neutral site, for South Carolina against North Carolina. And, I'll tell you this. LSU and Florida State, to me, is probably going to be the best game or the most anticipated game of week 1, but that game's on Sunday. Obviously, College Game Day is going somewhere for a Saturday game. And I think South Carolina, North Carolina is going to be the best game on that Saturday. Arguably a top 25 matchup. Battle between two great quarterbacks and Spencer Rattler at North Carolina, or South Carolina, Drake May at North Carolina. It's good. To me, it's a no-brainer. This should be where they go in week 1, although I could easily see them going to take for the Colorado TCU game, the Deion Sanders debut against the national runner-up. Very well could see that being the case, but if I were picking, it would be in Charlotte for the Gamecocks and the Tar Heels. Week 2. Texas and Alabama. Again, I feel like this is a no-brainer. A rematch of last year's 20-19 thriller in Austin. Alabama just barely getting by the Longhorns. Hopefully, Quinn Ewers doesn't get hurt this time around, so he stays healthy and is able to face off against a solid Alabama team. Alabama team that has quarterback questions. A lot of people think that maybe Texas could win in Tuscaloosa. A lot of people are maybe picking an upset here. We won't tell you if we're going that far or not. We'll save that for our game-by-game predictions. But obviously, two great programs, a great matchup from last year. It's just too good of a matchup to pass up. But if they choose not to go to Tuscaloosa, you could see them go to Utah at Baylor, Oregon at Texas Tech, maybe even Nebraska at Colorado if both teams get off to a solid start. Week 3, this one was tough. A lot of potential matchups here. I don't know if they want to go so SEC heavy early on, but I think week 3 they might consider going to Tennessee at Florida. Another potential top 25 matchup, especially if Florida beats Utah again in week 1. So potential top 25 matchup, huge for the SEC East. And obviously an interesting storyline here. I mean, Tennessee in week 3 will know enough about Joe Milton and what this team could be capable of in 2023. Florida, again, maybe top 25 team. How are they dealing with life without Anthony Richardson? Quarterback battle is intriguing, but the defense is going to be pretty solid. So Florida's defense against Tennessee's offense should be a fun matchup in the swamp. If they don't go that way, I could see them maybe doing Penn State, Illinois. A very intriguing cross-division game in the Big Ten. Pittsburgh at West Virginia. Obviously, the backyard brawl would be phenomenal. TCU at Houston. Houston making their debut in the Big 12, at least their first conference game for the Cougars. Maybe even James Madison at Troy, which would be a big Sun Belt Conference game. And maybe one of those, if not both, could be ranked in week 3. So something to watch out there. I think Tennessee at Florida, but very well could see one of those other games that we just mentioned. Week 4. Seems obvious here, Ohio State at Notre Dame. Again, another possible top 10 showdown. College football playoff implications. Last year's game was actually pretty solid. Ohio State won by 11, but it was close for the majority of the game. You've got Kyle McCord at Ohio State. How is he doing with the Buckeyes versus Sam Hartman and Notre Dame, one of the better quarterbacks to come out of the transfer portal, transferring in from Wake Forest. Both defenses have an intriguing storyline. Will Ohio State be better? Will Notre Dame still remain strong? Again, it's huge for both teams. And I think Notre Dame could maybe pull off the upset here. And if they do, the margin for error for Ohio State going forward is very, very small. And keep in mind, the Buckeyes at that point would not have played Penn State. They wouldn't have played Michigan. And one more loss would eliminate them from college football playoff contention. So something to really watch out for there. I lean Ohio State, Notre Dame. If they choose not to go that route, very well could see them going to Death Valley, Florida State at Clemson, a game that will have major ACC implications. And very well could also be a top 10 matchup between the Seminoles and the Tigers. Week 5, tough games to choose from here. I think many believe it would be Georgia at Auburn. I'm going to go differently. I'm going to say Week 5 to avoid too many SEC games for College Game Day, because keep in mind they very well could do 3 straight SEC caliber games from Week 1 to Week 3. I say Michigan at Nebraska, but only if Nebraska is 4-0 or 3-1. If Nebraska gets off to a hot start under Matt Rule, they will either be a top 25 team or flirting with the top 25. Michigan should be a top 10 team. This could be that storyline of, could Nebraska and Matt Rule pull off a major upset of the year? Can they shake up everything in the Big Ten? Could this be the marquee victory for Matt Rule with the Cornhuskers and make them back? Nebraska's back if they beat Michigan. Yeah, I can just see the storylines now. Not against it, but I think that's where they could go in Week 5, assuming that Nebraska gets off to their hot start. Week 6, Red River rivalry, Red River showdown, whatever you want to call it. It's Oklahoma, Texas. Typically a very close game, always an electric atmosphere. The last time that Oklahoma and Texas will play each other as members of the Big 12. Both teams should be pretty solid by Week 6, halfway through the year. I think, again, it's a no-brainer that they will go down to Dallas at the Cotton Bowl for these two, especially not just because of the history between the two, but also the end of an era, in a sense, with the two teams set to join the SEC in 2024. Week 7, Oregon at Washington. Huge for the Pac-12. And finally, the Pac-12 getting a little bit of love a little over halfway through the season. Again, a great quarterback matchup, right? Bo Nix versus Michael Penix. A rivalry game between the Ducks and the Huskies, and a revenge game at that. Remember last year, Oregon was in playoff contention. Washington strolled into Eugene, pulled off the massive upset. These are the two teams now that not only will be contending for Pac-12 titles again, but will be contending for a college football playoff spot. So major implications there. The rivalry, the potential for revenge, the quarterback battle, everything to me is shaping up for a potential top 10 matchup in Seattle. Should be a fun game between the Ducks and the Huskies. Week 8, Tennessee at Alabama. How can you not go to Tuscaloosa for a rematch of the game of the year from 2022? Tennessee's 52-49 victory over the Crimson Tide. This is also has an opportunity to be a game of unbeatens. There's a very good chance that Tennessee and Alabama could be undefeated in Week 8. So a potential top 10 showdown between the Vols and the Crimson Tide. I don't see how they could pass up on this opportunity to do this game because of what happened last year, unless one of the two teams is struggling and not living up to their preseason expectations. Because Week 8 is awesome. Now, I'm already looking forward to Week 1, but Week 8 is going to be even better. Because you've got Tennessee at Alabama. You've got Utah at USC. TCU at Kansas State. Both those games rematches of their respective conference championships. UCF at Oklahoma, the rematch or the reunion for Dylan Gabriel. Michigan at Michigan State. Penn State at Ohio State. Week 8 is going to be phenomenal. And any of those games that I just mentioned, including Tennessee, Alabama, would be worthy of College Game Day. So depending on how the Vols and the Crimson Tide are doing, depending on where College Game Day goes before, they may ditch Tuscaloosa and may go to one of those other games that we mentioned just because they want to avoid the SEC, or because simply one of those other games is better and has larger implications. But I still lean Tuscaloosa in Week 8. Week 9, Ohio State at Wisconsin. Let's go back to the Big Ten. Again, this is a potential trap game for the Buckeyes. We mentioned that Ohio State-Notre Dame game. If Ohio State were to lose that game, the room for error is very, very small. The schedule is pretty tough for Ohio State in Big Ten Conference play. The week before in Week 8, they're playing Penn State. Could be a loss there, who knows? But in Week 9, they go to Wisconsin. I think this is where Game Day is going. I think they go to Madison because this is a Wisconsin team that offensively looks completely different under first-year head coach Luke Fickell. It has a very, very favorable schedule to the point where Wisconsin could be 6-1 or 7-0 by Week 9. Their schedule is extremely favorable. And if Wisconsin is that good entering Week 9 and Ohio State is a undefeated or one-loss team, I don't see how they can go here. Big top 15 matchup in Madison, probably at night. Electric atmosphere, playoff and Big Ten title implications. Maybe the first of two meetings between Ohio State and Wisconsin. Potential big marquee signature win in year 1 under Luke Fickell. Stars are aligning for a massive game in Week 9 in Madison. If they choose not to go there, I can see them going to Salt Lake City for Oregon at Utah, but I think Ohio State-Wisconsin is just a little bit better in terms of that matchup. Again, assuming the teams live up to their expectations. Week 10, back to Death Valley, Notre Dame at Clemson. Again, another great matchup. The regular season games between Notre Dame and Clemson have been pretty fun to watch, and last year resulted in a massive upset and blowout victory for Notre Dame. Killed them last year. Killed the Tigers last year. So now Clemson certainly looking to get revenge. Both of these teams could be in the college football playoff hunt. Clemson, I mean, it's not a conference game for either, so it's not going to affect conference standings, but it could be a playoff elimination game for one of these teams. So something to keep in mind there. I think it's a great way to kick off November, potential top 10, top 15 matchup. And the rest of the slate isn't that great in week 10. You have Washington at USC, Oklahoma at Oklahoma State, LSU at Alabama. Very well could be what they do there as well, rematch there. But if they go to Alabama in week 8 and they went to them earlier in the year, I don't see them going again in week 10. So give me Notre Dame at Clemson. Week 11. Michigan at Penn State. This is huge. This is maybe one of my top games of the entire year in college football. Potential whiteout game in Happy Valley, potential top 10, maybe even top 5 matchup between Michigan and Penn State. Major Big Ten East implications. Michigan plays Ohio State a couple weeks later. Penn State would have already played it. The winner of this very well keeps their hopes alive for a conference title. The loser very well could be out. Could have playoff implications if both teams are doing well. I think it's going to be awesome. It's going to be an absolutely awesome game between the Wolverines and the Nittany Lions. And while you have a handful of other games that are pretty solid, if Michigan and Penn State are both as good as we think they're going to be, this to me is a no-brainer. Week 12, again, another no-brainer. Georgia at Tennessee. They're going to Neyland. There's no doubt about it. If both these teams are living up to the hype, you have a potential undefeated showdown in Knoxville, or maybe an undefeated Georgia and a one-loss Tennessee. Regardless, the SEC East will probably be on the line in Week 12. You can't avoid this game. You got to go. So kind of gives me Tennessee-Alabama vibes from last year. Very well could be the case there. And then in Week 13, it's kind of a tough one here for some. Would they consider going to the game? I think they would. Ohio State at Michigan, a game that very well could determine the Big Ten East, just like it has the last couple of years. Could essentially be a college football playoff play-in game, just like it has been the last couple of years. I don't see how you can pass this game up. I know the game will be on Fox, and I know the TV deal is going to get interesting there. Will game day go there if Big Noon kickoff is there? I think sometimes you just have to make an exception. It depends. If they choose not to go to Ohio State, Michigan, a potential top 5 matchup, and the stakes higher than any other game on the slate, if they choose not to go to Ann Arbor, I could very well see them going to Columbia, South Carolina. Clemson at South Carolina, both teams slated to have pretty solid 2023 seasons. South Carolina put off the massive upset over Clemson last year in Death Valley. It ruined Clemson's college football playoff hopes at the time. Revenge on the mind for the Tigers, especially if they're back in the playoff hunt. Very well could see South Carolina getting in. How poetic would that be? If they get South Carolina and North Carolina and Charlotte in week 1, first game of the year, and then it ends in Columbia with South Carolina at the very end of the year, how perfect would that be? Very poetic and very exciting for Shane Beamer and the Gamecocks, especially if they find a way to win both of those games. So there you have it, guys. I mean, that's 13 weeks. We have a long college football season ahead of us. We're probably not going to be right on all of these because sometimes they pull out an FCS game to throw in there or a Sun Belt team to throw in there. They change the schedule up periodically as you go through College Game Day. And of course, it's always based on how the teams fare, how the teams are doing in their respective seasons. But I'm going to give the edge to all of these games here, and we're just going to wait and see if we're right. So guys, as always, thank you so much for watching us here at the Gridiron Expert on YouTube. Make sure to continue to like, comment, subscribe, share our videos, and of course, check out everything down in the description below, including our expert picks, including our website, thegridironexpert.com, because guys, here at the Gridiron Expert, college football never dies. The season never ends, and we want you to become a part of our GE Nation. And once again, guys, as always, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time right here on the Gridiron Expert.
Yeah.